In the heart of the West African savannah, there was a village called Mbali, a land where the sun painted the skies in gold every evening, where drums echoed through the night, and where stories passed from lips to hearts like sacred flame. It was in this humble village that a girl named Zubaida lived. Zubaida had nothing, and yet she had everything. She had no wealth. Her father died before she could speak his name. Her mother passed during childbirth, leaving her in the arms of her aged grandmother. Mama Jaha, a woman known in Mbali for her bitter herbs and fierce prayers. Zubaida wore the same dress for days, patched and faded. Her feet were hardened from years of walking barefoot on the dusty paths. She fetched water at dawn, sold firewood at the market by noon, and spent her evenings helping the elderly or chasing goats for their neighbors. But ask anyone in Bali, they would tell you, Zubaida's spirit is richer than any king's. Her laughter could brighten a grieving heart. Her voice could soothe even the angriest market woman. She had a way of speaking to plants and animals as if they were family. But most of all, she had kindness. The kind of kindness that expected nothing in return. The kind of kindness the world had forgotten. One morning, the sky was gray, rare for Mbali. The villagers whispered that the spirits were restless. Zubaida had gone into the forest, basket in hand, to gather herbs. She moved quickly but carefully, singing softly as she picked bitter leaves and sweet roots. Birds fluttered overhead. The wind whistled through the trees like an old tune. Then she heard it. A faint groan. Not an animal, not a bird. It was human. She stopped, listened. The sound came again from deeper in the bush, curious and cautious. She followed the sound, and then she saw him. A man, lying on the forest floor. Shirt torn, face bruised, one leg twisted unnaturally. He looked barely conscious. His lips were dry, and his eyes fluttered like someone drifting between life and death. Zubaida dropped her basket and rushed to his side. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked. Her voice trembling, no answer. She dipped her scarf in water from her clay bottle and wiped his forehead, still no response, but he was breathing. Barely, she looked around. No one. No signs of a cart, a bicycle, or a traveler's pack. Just this broken man in the middle of the forest. She could have run, she could have left him, but Zubaida was not raised to walk past pain. She tore a piece of her wrapper, wrapped it gently around his bleeding hand, and whispered, "You'll be okay. I'll help you, even if you can't talk now. The forest is listening." Over the next hours, she worked quietly. She found large leaves and tied them together with vines to create a makeshift stretcher. With strength she didn't know she had, she pulled the man inch by inch through the forest. Path toward the edge of her village. Most people would have waited for help. Most would have called for men. But Zubaida acted on instinct. The pure instinct to save a life. When she reached her grandmother's hut, Mama Jaha gasped. "Zubaida, what madness is this?" "This man," Zubaida said between heavy breaths. "He was in the forest, alone, hurt. He would have died." Mama Jaha looked at the stranger with narrowed eyes. "His clothes are too fine, even torn. This is no ordinary man." Zubaida helped her lay him on a straw mat. "I don't care who he is," she whispered. He needed help. For the next few days, Zubaida and Mama Jaha treated his wounds with herbs and soup. He slept like a man trapped in a nightmare, tossing, muttering things like "they betrayed me." And not yet. Not yet. Zubaida never asked questions. She just brought him water, changed his bandages, sat quietly beside him, humming old songs. The village whispered. Some said he was a cursed spirit. Some said he was a criminal on the run. Others warned Zubaida to send him away. But she stood firm. "I don't care what he was," she said. "I care what he needs now." On the fourth day, The man opened his eyes. Dark brown, intelligent, tired. He looked around and saw her sitting in the corner, braiding palm fibers. "Where am I?" he croaked. Zubaida smiled softly. "You're alive. That's what matters." He tried to sit but winced. "Careful," she said, rushing to his side. "You were badly hurt. Rest." He looked at her, really looked. There was no fear in her eyes, only kindness, pure, undeserved kindness. "I'm Tariq," he said. Zubaida nodded. "I'm Zubaida," and from that moment, everything began to change. Tariq stayed in Zubaida's home for more than a week. He didn't talk much at first, just watched quietly from the mat, slowly healing. His leg, once badly twisted, began to straighten under Mama Jaha's careful hands. The bruises on his face darkened, then faded. The cuts scabbed and shrunk, but his eyes always looked far away, as if they were searching for something in a world that had long stopped looking back. Zubaida never asked about his past. She didn't care. To her, kindness wasn't a transaction. It wasn't a bargain for information. She gave because it was who she was. But Tariq noticed everything. He noticed how she rose before dawn, carrying a cracked clay pot on her head to fetch water from the stream. He noticed how she returned with bundles of firewood and herbs tied with faded cloth. He noticed how she tore a piece from her only sleeping mat to make his feet more comfortable. He noticed how the villagers avoided her hut, whispering, speculating, doubting, and he noticed how none of it ever made her bitter. "Why are you helping me?" he finally asked one night, his voice low. They sat outside the hut under a moonlit sky. The stars twinkled like diamonds. Zubaida stirred a pot of pepper soup over a small fire. She shrugged. "Because you needed help, I have nothing to offer you. I didn't ask for anything. You don't even know who I am. I know enough. You're someone who is left to die. And I couldn't leave you." Tariq looked away. He remembered what he was running from. A betrayal at the highest level, friends he trusted. Business partners who turned into vultures. Greed that tried to swallow him whole. He had left the city with nothing but a wallet and a bleeding heart. They had tried to destroy him, and he escaped through sheer luck. Or maybe fate. Now he sat in a village no one knew, in a house built with love but held together by struggle. And here, girl with nothing treated him like royalty. By the second week, Tariq was walking again, slowly, with a limp but strong enough. Zubaida never stopped helping, never stopped smiling. She gave him her portion of food without hesitation. She shared her stories, not grand ones, but real ones, about how she once found a snake in her water pot, about how her goat always runs away at sunset, about how she hopes one day, maybe, to see the ocean. Tariq laughed for the first time in weeks. Not a polite laugh, a deep, full, chest-shaking laugh. Zubaida's face lit up. "That's better. You laugh like a man who forgot how." "I had forgotten," he admitted. Each day he grew stronger, and each day something else grew. A feeling, warm, strange, dangerous. It wrapped around both their hearts like vines, slow and quiet, but firm. He watched her fix a torn basket with nimble fingers. She watched him feed Mama Jaha when her hands were too tired to lift a spoon. They said nothing, but their silences said everything. Then one morning, everything changed. Tariq was gone. Zubaida woke up and found his mat empty. No note, no goodbye, just silence. Her heart stopped. She ran to the edge of the village, checked the forest path, the stream, the big rock where he sometimes sat. Nothing. He had disappeared, vanished like a dream. Mama Jaha shook her head. Perhaps he was never meant to stay, child. Sometimes angels wear broken clothes. But Zubaida was crushed. She ate less, spoke less, smiled less. Days turned 2 weeks. The forest no longer felt magical. It felt empty, and her heart ached for a man she barely knew but had given her soul to. Then, one afternoon, nearly 3 weeks later, everything changed again. It started with a sound entrance, loud, unfamiliar. The villagers gathered, murmuring, as a convoy of luxury black SUVs rolled into Bali. Out stepped tall men in dark suits. Security agents. They moved quickly but respectfully, scanning the area. Then the main door opened. Out stepped a man in a dark blue suit. Clean-shaven, powerful presence, gold watch catching the sun. Zubaida gasped. It was Tariq. But this was not the broken man from the forest. This was a king. The villagers stood frozen. Zubaida dropped her water pot. Tariq walked straight toward her. The man who had once been helpless now stood like a giant, confident, regal, untouchable. Zubaida's lips trembled. Tariq. He stopped in front of her, his voice steady. I never told you who I was because I wanted to see who I was without everything. And you reminded me. She stared at him, tears already forming. You left. I had to make something. Right to return as the man worthy of your heart. He turned to the villagers and raised his voice. This woman saved me when I had nothing. She gave without asking. She loved without knowing. Today, stand here not as a billionaire, not as a businessman, but as a man ready to repay a debt no money could cover. And then, with everyone watching, he went down on one knee. The village of Ambali had never seen such a sight. A man in a fine blue suit, kneeling before a girl who once walked barefoot with patched wrappers. Wealth, power, and mystery surrounded him. Yet here he was, bowing to Zubaida. Gasps rippled. Through the crowd, children stared wide-eyed. Elders held their breath. Tariq held out a small wooden box. Simple, unpolished, yet elegant in its own way. Inside was not a diamond, but a ring carved from polished ivory, scribed with the Swahili words, Asili ya Upendo, the origin of love. Zubaida blinked, overwhelmed. Her hands trembled. Her voice caught in her throat. Why me? She finally whispered. Tariq looked up at her, eyes steady and honest. Because when I had nothing, you gave me everything. But the village did not stay silent. A woman in the crowd shouted, She's too poor for you. Another muttered, What can she give a man like that? And someone else hissed, He's bewitched. It must be her grandmother's work. Whispers turned into murmurs. Murmurs turned into judgment. Zubaida stepped back. The joy in her eyes began to fade. She had faced hunger. She had faced loss. But she had never faced this. Doubts from her own people. Mama Jaha stepped forward, fierce as ever. Are you blind? You villagers. This girl nursed a stranger from the edge of death. What wealth is greater than compassion? But the judgment was heavy. And Zubaida could feel it pressing down on her shoulders. She turned to Tariq. You're a billionaire. You have options. You don't have to do this for honor. I don't want pity. Tariq rose slowly and gently took her hands in his. Zubaida, if this was about honor, I'd name a street after you. If it was about pity, I'd give your family gold, but it's neither. It's love. I came back not because you helped me. I came back because in this entire world of wealth and betrayal, you are the only truth I found. If you say no, I'll leave and never trouble you again. But if you say yes, he paused, looking deep into her soul. You will be the queen of my heart, whether in this village or in my world beyond it. Zubaida's eyes welled up. Her grandmother touched her shoulder. You were born in this village, child. A tear's spirit is far bigger. The villagers slowly quieted. Some women wiped their tears. Men who once doubted bowed their heads. Zubaida took a deep breath. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Cheers erupted. Drums began to play. Children danced in the dust. And for the first time in Mbali's history, joy silenced judgment. That night, there was no sleep. Tariq's team returned with gifts, not just for Zubaida, but for the entire village. Food, clothes, tools, school supplies, and something even greater: hope. He pledged to build a well so no girl would ever carry water miles again. He promised to rebuild the school and equip it with books and lights. But he made one rule. Zubaida's name must be carved into every stone. She is the reason. Days passed and preparations for a grand but cultural wedding began. It would be held right there in the village, by the same forest where Zubaida once found a broken man. But while many celebrated, not all were happy. A man named Cato, a suitor who had once tried to marry Zubaida and been rejected, burned with jealousy. He went to the neighboring village and began spreading rumors. That man is cursed. He will take her and vanish. She used forest magic. Look at how fast it all changed. Rumors grew, and one night, a group of jealous villagers plotted to sabotage the wedding. They planned to steal the ring before the ceremony. The village of Mbali was alive. Drums echoed through the fields. The air was thick with the smell of pepper stew and roasted yam, and colorful fabrics fluttered from every rooftop. The people danced and sang. Children chased each other with laughter, and the trees themselves seemed to sway in celebration. It was the day before the wedding of Zubaida and Tariq, the union of a humble village girl and the man she had saved from death, who turned out to be a multi-billionaire. Everything was perfect. Except, it wasn't. Late that night, while the village slept, shadows moved. A group of jealous men, led by Cato, the rejected suitor, crept into the decorated hut, where Zubaida's wedding gifts were kept. Among the gifts sat a small wooden box. Inside, that box was the ivory ring, inscribed with a cilia appendo, the very ring Tariq had chosen to seal his eternal promise. They stole it, gone by morning. The box was empty. Zubaida's scream pierced the dawn. Panic rippled through the village. The wedding couldn't continue without the ring, not because of the value, but because it was a symbol of trust, a symbol of destiny. Tariq remained calm, but his eyes were dark with concern. He had faced boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, but nothing prepared him for the cruelty of envy. The villagers gathered in a circle, buzzing with accusations. It must be someone from the outside. One said, "No, someone among us," shouted another. Tariq raised a hand to silence them. "No one leaves this village until the ring is found. Not because it is expensive, but because it was carved by my late mother. It carries more than gold. It carries blood." Heart ached, not because of the ring, but because of what it revealed. There were still those who hated what she represented. A poor girl rising too far, too fast. That evening, as tension tightened the air like a storm, Zubaida went to the forest alone. She walked to the exact spot where she had first found Tariq. The memories came rushing back. The bruised man, the broken body, the quiet groans of pain. Back then, he had nothing, and she had given all she could. Now they were surrounded by riches, and it felt like everything was slipping. She dropped to her knees, tears falling onto the forest floor. "If this is a test," she whispered to the trees, "please, let me pass." Suddenly, a rustling came from behind. She turned. It was a little boy, Kojo, one of the curious village children. He clutched something tightly in his fist. "Zubaida, Allah," he said shyly. "I saw where the bad men hid something last night, under the big stone by the elder's tree." Her heart jumped. She ran. Kojo led her, barefoot and fast. through the path behind the village hall. There, beneath the old talking tree where elders met, was a flat stone. She knelt and lifted it, and there it was, the box inside. The ring. Zubaida didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply stood and walked straight to the gathering at the village center, where Tariq and the elders were trying to calm the crowd. She raised the box. Silence fell like rain. "The ring has returned," she said softly. "But not because I searched, because a child remembered what others forgot to watch and to listen." She looked straight at Cato, whose face had gone pale. "I do not need to punish those who hate me," she said calmly, "because they already live in darkness." Then she handed the ring to Tariq. The wedding resumed. But now, it wasn't just a wedding. It was a victory. A victory of love over envy, of truth over rumor, of a girl who once had nothing, standing tall in the center of a village that once whispered against her. The ceremony began beneath the wide baobab tree, the same tree Zubaida used to sit under while selling her bundles of herbs. Now, drums played for her. Dancers moved for her, and at the center, dressed in white and gold, with henna on her hands and stars in her eyes, Zubaida walked down the aisle. Tariq waited, tears in his eyes. They said their vows before the ancestors. "I choose you," Tariq said, "not because you saved my life, but because you reminded me how to live." Zubaida's voice trembled but stood strong. "And I choose you, not because of your wealth, but because you saw my soul, even when the world refused to look." Cheers erupted, and when they kissed, the entire village danced, not out of obligation, but out of hope. Because if love like this could happen in Mbali, it could happen anywhere. The wedding of Zubaida and Tariq became more than a village celebration. It became a story that echoed far beyond Mbali. News traveled in the city. Newspapers splashed headlines like, "Billionaire marries forest girl who saved his life from barefoot to bride." The village girl who won a billionaire's heart, but to Zubaida, it wasn't about money, or fame, or fairy tales. It was about honor and staying true to who she was from the first day she knelt beside a wounded man, to the moment she stood beside him as his wife. After the wedding, Tariq asked, "Would you'd like to come live in my world?" Zubaida looked at the horizon where the trees touched the sky. "Only if I can bring my world with me." So they did both. They traveled together from Mbali to Nairobi, from Lagos to Dubai. Zubaida saw the ocean for the first time, wide and blue. Like her dreams, she wore gowns stitched by the finest tailors, dined with presidents and queens, and sat on boards where decisions shaped nations. But she never forgot her roots. She never walked past a beggar without stopping, never ate a plate she couldn't share, never let anyone bow to her, for she knew what it felt like to be invisible. Tariq helped her launch the Zubaida Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting rural girls with education, training women in herbal medicine and small businesses, building wells in forgotten villages, teaching self-worth through storytelling. And at the heart of the foundation was this quote, "Kindness doesn't need wealth. It creates it." 1 year after the wedding, they returned to Mbali. The village had changed. A new school stood where children once sat on rocks. A clean water well flowed where Zubaida once carried heavy pots, and a large mural had been painted. Across the market wall, Zubaida, kneeling beside an injured man, her hands stretched in compassion. Beneath it, 3 words in bold, "Love lives here." As they walked through the village, people bowed, not out of fear, but out of deep respect. Zubaida saw old faces, the midwife who raised her, the boy who led her to the ring, even Cato, who now helped run the village garden as it changed. No one brought up the past because everyone now lived in the present, a present she helped shape. Later that evening, Zubaida sat with Mama Jaha under the same tree where it had all begun. "Grandmother," she whispered, "how did I get here?" The old woman smiled, her eyes soft but proud. "Because you saw a man in the forest and didn't walk away. You had nothing but a heart, and that heart built everything." Zubaida nodded. She looked down at her ring, still ivory, still engraved with a Sili Ye Appendo. She remembered the nights. She had gone to sleep hungry. She remembered the judgmental whispers. She remembered the pain of being left behind. And now she remembered something greater. She had become a queen, not because of riches, not because of the man beside her, but because she had always been one, even before the world saw it. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment "and" so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye.